Hello and welcome to the Align and Inspire podcast. I am your host, Lauren Monique, and I am here to help you build a business that allows you to do more of what you love and less of what you don't. A business that doesn't steal away your energy, but instead fuels you, fulfills you. And I am really here to help you bring your next vision, the next iteration of your business to life. This podcast is going to be for you if you are in the expert industry, a coach, a course creator, a consultant, and you want to bring that next vision of your business, a reality, to life, and you want to grow and scale your business, but you don't want to feel capped and you don't want to sacrifice your family or your client results either. Now, if you're listening and you are in the teaching business of any kind, maybe you're a teacher entrepreneur as well, and you're not a coach, that is totally fine. You are more than welcome to come here as well. This one is especially meant for coaches and course creators, but I know a few of you listening may very well be a teacher creator as well, and you are absolutely going to find some inspiration and tools to help you create a business that you love as well. In this episode 1, we're talking about building an aligned business. And I have to tell you that I really struggled to come up with a name for this podcast because I wanted to encompass more than just what I do, which a lot of it is helping business owners create systems and structure for their business so that their business feels lighter, so they have more time to do what they love. But I didn't just want to talk about structure and systems because that's not really what I'm about. And so let's talk about align and inspire. So for me, aligning, I think a lot of us, and if you're like me, you might have started a business just because you think, like, what kind of business can I start? What could I get paid for? And you kind of start a business out of, not by accident, but just to see like what's possible for you. And you might have followed some structures or step-by-steps from other experts or business coaches, and that may have worked for a little while, but it didn't really feel like you. It didn't really feel like the business that you wanted to create. So this is about creating a business that feels aligned to you, that works with your personality, that works with what brings you joy, fulfillment. I am so about individualization. If you are, you are going to discover how obsessed I am with personality types and all sorts of different personality quizzes and things like that. And one of my strengths is individualization in the Gallup strengths. If you've ever taken that, if you haven't, highly recommend. And that is really understanding what makes people different, what makes people unique. And that is what I want to bring to this podcast about making sure that your business feels aligned for you, that it is true to what makes you different and is really aligning with your strengths and your zone of genius, rather than just doing something because it felt easy for you or you've kind of fell into it. So that's the first. And the second is to inspire. So I want every episode to inspire you in some way, because I listen to podcast episodes on the regular. And the big thing that I really need as an entrepreneur is I need someone to help inspire me as I create this new business, I've been in business for 6 years, but to create a business or continue going through a business when I'm feeling discouraged or when I'm feeling lonely or when I'm feeling like I have a lot of challenges. Like, I find podcasts can be so helpful for that. And I want that for you too, that this podcast can inspire you to move forward in your business. But also I want you to feel inspired to act and as a leader in your own business too. I want you to feel that this podcast is going to give you tools and strategies to inspire your audience, to inspire your clients, and even to inspire your team, even if it's just a few part-time VAs. We're definitely going to be talking about team on this podcast. And so I want to help you and equip you and give you the tools to help inspire your team as well. So that is my intention of the podcast. I'm so excited that you're here, that you're listening, that we are getting this podcast off the ground. And it has, like I said, I've been in business for 6 years. And actually, at the time of this recording, my podcast is going to be launched totally by accident. We'll call it a synchronicity. The day that I officially started my business 6 years ago. And what happened was I've been coming back from maternity leave. I am from Canada, and we are very lucky to have year-long maternity leaves. And I wanted to go back part-time. I had just had my first son and I wanted to go back part-time. And at the time I was a teacher. So if you know me, I have worked with teachers up until the last 6 months or so in my business. I've always supported teachers. And I was a teacher at the time. And I had truly my dream job. I had so much freedom in my job. I could create whatever I wanted. I didn't even have to follow a curriculum. It was amazing. I loved my job. And I didn't want to leave it. But once I had my son, as you can probably guess, my priorities shifted and I didn't want to go back to school full time. So I decided I wanted to go back part time, but my district would not allow me to do so. And I was so frustrated. So I took matters into my own hands and I said, okay, I'm going to find someone to come in so I can do 3 days a week and they can come and do 2 days a week. So I looked far and wide and I found a teacher who had my exact specialty, which was French immersion. So you had to have a really great high level of French to be a French immersion teacher. And she was qualified. She worked for the district. She was so excited to take my position part-time. She was a newer teacher. And they still would not allow me to go to part-time. I was so frustrated, so just like it was a huge turning point. But of course, as I'm sure you can guess in entrepreneurship, that was a wonderful silver lining in my life because I said, screw this. I'm done with you guys. I quit the district and I decided to go find a part-time job elsewhere. And I decided, there must be another way for me to make money and still be at home with my son. And that's when I started my side hustle because truly, I don't know about you, but I never intended to become an entrepreneur. When I became a teacher because it seemed like the safe bet because I wanted to be a responsible mom. I never thought, entrepreneurship sounded so risky. I never envisioned myself becoming an entrepreneur. And now 6 years later, here we are, and I'm absolutely meant to do this. But I left teaching and I started my side hustle and I thought, well, what could I do? What can I do with my skills? And I started creating teaching resources. So if you are not a teacher, I started selling resources on a site called Teachers Pay Teachers, which is basically like Etsy for teachers. So I started creating lesson plans and activities and full-blown year-long plans for teachers. And a year or two later, I was running a membership for French immersion teachers, so high school French immersion teachers. And I remember one day I was sitting at my kitchen table and I had just gotten off the phone with Zoom call with my VA. And I remember feeling so deflated because I had just spent all this time explaining to her what we needed to do. And I had this rising stress on me because I had created a low price membership that was very demanding. And I remember feeling like, oh my gosh, how am I going to continue to do this, to support this? And I remember feeling like I only at the time had about 10 hours a week to work on my business. And I had spent all this time explaining to my VA how to do something. And I realized like, this is ridiculous. I could have done this in the same amount of time. And now I'm paying someone else to do it. Like what? Oh my gosh. It was just one of those moments. I don't know if you ever have one of those moments where you're just like, oh my God, this is just not working. And I remember feeling like, well, for one thing, I remember feeling the stress that, my business was doing well. I had launched, I had all these teachers who were really excited to be part of my membership. I literally would meet people when I was in schools who would say, oh my gosh, are you Parfaitement Bilingue? Like I've bought your resources before. Like I was getting known in my industry. I had my membership. People were finding out about it. My teachers were loving it. But I was teaching at the time, part-time. I was running my membership. So I only had about 10 hours a week to work. And I had this VA and I was like, oh my gosh, like I need to be way more efficient. Like this is taking too much. And at the same time, I had all this pressure and I felt so worried that I wasn't going to be able to support my teachers. And I was so afraid that I was going to let them down. And at the same time, I had this desire to really make a bigger impact in the lives of my clients. I wanted to make a big impact. I was at that point, I was starting to move into some of the training and doing professional development. I wanted to support them in their teaching. I wanted to make their lives easier. I wanted to make their lives better. And I also wanted to grow my family. Like, I really wanted to have another baby. So in true Lauren fashion, I didn't do anything and I just kept pushing on through, not recommended. And I decided to get pregnant. And that is truly when everything just, I don't want to say hit the fan, but it was like, okay, that's when everything just came to a head. And I thought, like, I was so sick, like there was no way I could continue doing this. So I took a pause. And I spent that time, as I took a pause, learning all I could about running an efficient business, about time management, about structure, so that I could do this in a different way. Because I was bound and determined to say, like, I cannot keep running my business like this. Like, truthfully, truth be told, honestly, the real moment for me was when I was driving home one night and it was raining. I remember very vividly, my mom and I had just been at the hospital and my mom had taken me to the hospital one night. So my son was with my husband, and I had been feeling so sick and there was nothing wrong with me. And this had been a recurring event. And she said, Lauren, you need to get a handle of this. This isn't good. Like, this is not good for you. This isn't good for your son. And I thought, like, oh my gosh, like, what if I have to let go of my business? I love my business. How am I going to handle this? So when I took that pause, I was bound and determined to do something different. And when I came back, I decided to build a very different business. And a few months later, into this new version 2.0 of my business, I remember sitting again at my table, and I was running a meeting with my team because I had a part-time team at the time. And I remember sitting back and I just shared an idea of what I wanted to create next. And all of a sudden, my team just started bringing it to life. Like, they started giving ideas and everyone was just pulling it all together. And I just sat back and watched. And truly, it blew my mind. And that's when I knew, okay, I did it. Like, this is a very different business. This business feels so much lighter, so much more. I had so much more ability to create what I wanted to create. And in fact, as I let the team run and create those ideas, it allowed me to branch into what I truly wanted to do, which was to do more coaching and consulting. So I started creating my group program for teachers, and I helped them stop working evenings and weekends. And the reason I was able to kind of transition to that other business while the same business was running, my original teaching resource business, was because of the systems and structures that I had placed in my business. My team knew exactly, they all had their own roles. We had the processes in place for that business to truly run without me. And so that's when I started working with teams. That's when I started working with teachers, and I loved that. And then as I continued on, I still make passive income from my original business, my teaching resource business. And I was running this business for as a teacher mentor, as a teacher coach. And as I started working, other entrepreneurs would say, like, I realized that they were having a lot of the same challenges that my teachers were, but plus with the business. So they were saying, like, I am running my business on, I only have 20, 25 hours a week to work, but my business is bleeding into my life. Like, how can I do this differently? Or I want to scale to the next level, but I feel capped in my one-on-ones in my group. Like, I can't scale to the next level because I don't have any more hours in the day. And so I started coaching and consulting with entrepreneurs too. And that was, oh my gosh, so fun. And that's what led us to doing led me to doing what I'm doing now, because that's when those entrepreneurs were able to move from a business that was really taking from them, that was draining them, to a business that fulfilled them, that they have space for, that you have all that creative energy. And one of the things that I teach, and what I came to realize that moment when I was sitting in that meeting, and in the times that I've refined and learned as I've started working with entrepreneurs, is that first off, we want to be running real businesses. We want to run businesses that we're not just self-employed. We run a business that it's its own entity, and its real businesses have teams and systems and structures that allow them to work on their own. But that's not only the thing that made the difference for me. For me, it was about creating intuitive systems. So intuitive systems are systems and structures that are based on you, that are intuitive to you and your personality. And I also even use like my own intuition and mindset. So it's a bit of a shift. And that's what we're going to be talking about in this podcast. So for the sake of simplicity today, intuitive systems are systems that are based on you, on your own personality, that feel natural for you, even if you're not someone who loves systems, so that you're free to do more of what you love and less of what you don't. So they really free you up in your business. And when you have that space, when you're not bogged down in the day-to-day details of your business because you've got those intuitive systems, that's when you can have creativity. That's when you can feel inspired. That's when you can build more alignment, because you have that space to think and move to the next phase in your business. So intuitive systems for me are really what's necessary, or the most aligned way for you to grow and scale your business in a way that feels really, really good to you, in a way that feels aligned, that doesn't sacrifice your time with your family, that doesn't sacrifice your client results, and doesn't feel like another added thing to your to-do list too. It's something that brings more ease into your business. So that's what I wanted to even bring in this podcast, is we're going to be talking about, yes, the systems and structure and planning, and how that can support you to know that you're doing the right things in your business, so that you haven't forgotten things, so that you can move to the next level and build out that new vision. Like, a lot of times I find my clients have like that great vision. They're like, hey, how do I get there? Like, yes, we're absolutely going to be talking about that in this podcast, but we're also going to be bringing that intuitive side too. So the intuition, your own intuition. I love bringing intuition into my business. How you can bring more of that mindset, because when I think back, like a lot of those challenges that I had in that first iteration of my business were mindset related too. So we're going to be talking about that in this podcast. And really, my intention for this podcast is to inspire you and to help you bring your next vision. Because if you're listening, I'm guessing you've already been in business for a while like me. We're going to be bringing your next vision to life. And I want to give you the tools, the mindsets, the strategies to make that happen. So I am so excited that you are here in this very first episode of the Align and Inspire podcast. We're going to be talking all about intuitive systems and intuition, and I'm going to be bringing on some beautiful guest experts to inspire you and to give you new ideas for your own business. And I'll be doing some solo episodes too. We'll be publishing this episode, or this podcast, once a week. So I would love to have you tune in again next week for next week's episode. And before you do, if you found this episode helpful, or if you liked it, I would love to hear from you. You can reach me on Instagram at laurenmonique.business, because my intention for this is truly to create a conversation. I know it is one way, you're just listening in, but I am a teacher at heart. I mean, that was one of the biggest struggles actually when I became an online expert or an online business owner, is I didn't have like my students right in front of me to get their results, or to get their reactions, and to move and pivot based on how people were doing. So I love to hear from you. I love to get that feedback, because I want this business, or this podcast, to really be something that supports you, that helps you in your business as well. So send me a message on Instagram. I would love to hear you, laurenmonique.business, and I will see you next week.